Welcome, everyone. We are live on Zoom and on YouTube. I hope if someone could just let me know if you can see the live stream. There is a short delay, but I think all is working. So first of all, welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, to this UTOPIZE Forum. So I'm just going to share my screen with a very, very, very short presentation. I hope you can see my screen. Multitasking sometimes doesn't work, but I think it's working here. Okay, great. So welcome to the UTOPIZE Forum. This is part of a NAB satellite. This is a NAB satellite event, part of the NAB Festival. More on that in a few seconds. My name is Marilia Cunha. I'm a senior consultant and project manager at UTOPIZE. And we are partners of the UTOPIZE project, an Horizon Europe NAB project. Just a few housekeeping instructions. Feel free to use the chat to add questions to the speakers, your thoughts, to interact with each other. It would be great if you could introduce yourself, just hi, where are you from? Which city are you from? Or where you live? That would be great. If you post something on social media about this event, it would be great to tag us. You have the option of using closed captions on Zoom, and then on YouTube, the recording will also have captions. All the presentations will be sent by email. You have the Miro board, also all the presentations there. My colleague Alexandra will be adding all the links on the chat, as well as a feedback questionnaire at the end of the event that we kindly ask you to fill in. Just a brief overview of this 2-hour session. We will be having a roundtable on participatory governance in practice, followed by the Q&A. Okay, thank you. Since this is live stream on YouTube, the recording is, I think, double checking that everything is being recorded. Then we will have a break, short break also to transition to the interactive exercise, and that part is not going to be live streamed. So we are going to be working in groups, 2 breakout rooms. You should have already decided which exercise you want to tackle in your registration form, and that's how my colleague will also divide you in the different breakout rooms. So if you change your mind, just let us know in the chat and we can arrange that. Then we will report back to this room to have some to discuss 3 or 4 main ideas. I would there is some background noise. I would ask someone if they have their mic on to please turn it off. And then also a short conclusion on what happens next for UTOPIZE and for also other NEP projects that we have here. Just a few notes on the NEB itself, so on the NEB Festival. First of all, NEB is short for New European Bauhaus, which is a EU policy initiative, very much taken from the Bauhaus movement, focused on inclusivity, beauty, and sustainability. Usually in June, around June, there is a festival happening in Brussels, but also around Europe with the satellite events like this one. This edition focuses on democratic engagement and affordable housing, and our session is very much focused on how can we build cities that work for everyone. And for this, we have the 2 parts, so the roundtable and participatory governance, as I mentioned, and then the 2 creative exercises. One of them is a City in a Box challenge, and the other one is the crisis simulation, which I will be talking about after the roundtable. I would also like to introduce our speakers today. So we have Bahanur Nasia. She's an architect, a researcher, a project manager, and film producer. She has studied in Vienna and Barcelona, specializing in sustainable architecture and just and fair community. So it's going to be great to hear her perspectives on how to make cities work for everyone. Then we have Carlota Fontana. She is involved in several EU projects, as well as the EU mission on climate neutral and smart cities. She has collaborated with also other NEP projects, for example, ERIT Act. And she is very much an expert, so she works in innovative governance arrangements, multi-stakeholder collaboration. So it's going to be great to hear from her. Then we have Nefeli Georgopoulos, coordinator of the SPICE project, which is our sister project. Sister project is a term that we use for projects that were approved under the same call. So it's very much similar to what UTOPIZE is doing. She will definitely be talking more about this. And she's also an architect. And Pia Fricker who is here also with Chiara Chioni, who will also because Pia has to leave earlier, so Chiara will join us for the rest of the session. She is a professor at Aalto University, and she is also a partner of the UTOPIZE project. She is leading the establishment of the Utopia Labs in our project. So it will be great to hear from her and her perspective on how this co-creation process of establishing collaborative labs in 3 different locations is going. In terms of the project presentation, we kindly ask you to go check the Miro. We have presentations there. We thought it was more interesting than to just have a 10 or 15-minute presentation, but feel free also to share, to ask questions if you have, and share it in the chat. Where my colleague, I hope, and I think that is also adding all the information, the newsletters, websites, all the information that you might need to know more about these projects. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can start the conversation. Let me just stop sharing. Okay, you should see us now, right? Are you seeing? We are seeing each other. Yes, great. So let's start then regarding let's start the plenary session. I have an initial question that maybe we can start for all the speakers. We talk a lot about participatory governance. In fact, is very much one of the concepts that always is described in European calls when applying to funding. But what exactly do we mean, or what we should mean beyond consultation? Is participatory governance really participatory? That's what that's the main question that I want to start off this discussion. I don't know who wants to start, Bahanur, maybe you can start first.
Yeah, sure. As we are many architects in the round, I think what we are taught to do is that we have someone hiring us, giving us certain tasks, and we can think in space and in time and come up with architectural solutions. And we are used to that, to react on prompt or demand or desires and needs. In the participatory practice and planning, the difficulty is that the citizens are not feeling themselves as the ones who demand, who have needs, or who have potentially also ideas or sustainable ideas. So the participatory practice, no matter if it's the planning itself or the governing of spaces, means also capacity building on the side of the citizens, that either we have to go this one extra step towards the citizens, or the citizens have to have an idea what place, this architecture, this urban space needs to fulfill. And this is kind of like somehow, as you said, in projects, no matter if it's funded by the EU or by the city, it's just afterthought. It's very much like a dissemination event where you potentially have a lot of people coming to the event, but there is no exchange. There is not this collaboration. It's even not consultancy most of the case, and no co-creation. So for participative planning, governing, you need a process where you both on both sides, the ones who elaborate the solutions or implement the solutions and the ones who have to live with the solution have to change things, have to bring the ideas together that it really benefits both sides. And this time, this money is not given. This is unfortunately still the status quo after having so many years of participation funding, in my opinion.
Great way to start. So, Carlotta, what do you think? What's your take?
Yes, I really think there is a process more than a single action. So I will frame it as a process that is really aiming to transform the way the power of decision is taken. Maybe my comment is less connected to participatory governance linked to a specific domain, but more overall as a process where the decision and the context is not already decided. So what is shared is the agenda of the process, is the way we will be taking decision and the way also the decision will be put in practice. Oftentimes we assist to process that are consultative but are masked under real participation where the scene is already set. So the participants are just actors that intervene in something that is already decided. So I think it's important to provide the context. At the same time, it's important to provide the context for the citizen, but also the different stakeholder and expertise to participate, to formulate the right question, and then to take the decision. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is that one. There are many initiatives that we can see in city where this process has been started. I agree that is a process that requires time and money. So that's why I was saying is transformative, because the intention of having this transformation being possible need to be set in place. So you have to allocate enough time and also money. It's true.
It is very true. Nefeli, do you want to go next?
Yes, of course.
How is this? What is also your take on this? But also, how is SPICE doing tackling this issue of participatory approach?
I will definitely agree that one of the most important thing is the willingness to share control from governance, and of course, participatory governance is not only consultation. So in SPICE, of course, we will contact stakeholders for consultation, but we will also map them into stakeholders that will co-design and stakeholders that will co-governance at the end. So it depends on the phase of this whole co-creation process, who we contact and what role they will play. So there is a role for everyone. that what is trying to do in SPICE. And I think also what is very important is that citizens engaging from the beginning is a good, very helpful for framing the problem, because sometimes what we usually do is like they ask them to come and propose solution, but this is not the case. I think it's very important to frame with them the problem and the challenge. So this is also something that we're trying to do in SPICE. And another very important issue, I think, is that the government need to be accountable for the community input. So what usually happens is that we gather input from citizens or from stakeholders, and at the end they don't feel very okay with this because they cannot see their contributions somewhere. So I think what makes a participatory governance work, what will make it work, I think, is the institutional accountability for community input.
Totally agree. Pia, Chiara, what's your take, and also what's your experience so far in UTOPIZE?
Great. Thanks very much, Marilia, and hi to everybody. Yes, so we teamed up, so you will hear from Chiara and myself inputs to different questions. So I very much agree with what has been said in the three previous kind of little intakes, and maybe not to repeat, but to add an additional angle to the conversation. I guess for me, it is really important that this participatory governance means moving from that we simply only ask people what they think, which has been done and was also pointed out, can be very superficial and can give a false feeling of being integrated, but really to shift towards that people can actually influence what is already defined as a problem. I think, Nefeli, you also pointed that out, and I think that's where it really starts, because then also people start to be responsible about the environment in which they live. So it's not only that they expect someone solves for them a problem which they might not even have encountered, but we start on what's the definition of the problem, what alternatives can be explored again jointly, and what trade-offs are made and how these decisions are later evaluated. And I think that's where also this power game needs to be much more transparent, and that is then depending, of course, on the structure, on the governance model of each municipality or even country. But I think that for me is like the main important part when it comes to participatory governments, is that to kind of make us all understand that we are responsible for the kind of for the future. And then when it comes to the UTOPIZE project, I think Marilia already talked a tiny bit about it. So we have also more colleagues here, which is great. So I think they can also join in later. But what we are really trying is this framing this decision making or problem definition through this co-design and governance of public spaces. So we try to make that a bit more accessible, that it's around spaces people are using on a daily basis. They have some kind of experience with that. They connect through it because of kids, parents, childhood. And with that in mind, they almost become local experts. And how can we kind of leverage this expertise in order to put these places which quite often have weaknesses towards strengths, and enable then the local people through different kind of tools and means, and we can talk later about that, to make their voice not only heard, but then actually that they are active and feel also that they can be part of the whole process, and we don't only ask them in the beginning and then basically unveil the outcome in the end. Maybe that's enough as a starting point.
Yes, it is. And it's actually a great bridge to our to start also involving the other participants in the discussion. So we have a poll that my colleague Alexandre will share with you, which exactly touches one of the questions touches exactly on what Pia was saying. Who should we who are we not talking to or with? because we always talk also about marginalized populations, about how to involve everyone, how to be inclusive. But especially in these EU projects, are we doing that? Who are we talking when we talk about these people? So I would like to maybe launch the opening poll, and we can discuss also while filling in the survey. So Alexandre, if you can start it, and in the meantime, we can continue the discussion. Exactly. Okay, you should have received a pop-up. So it's just a way to okay, I'll just minimize it. You should have received a pop-up with the questions. But moving on. So who is still missing from these participatory urban processes? How do we avoid to have only people who are more active, who are involved already in organizations, taking the lead, which is not necessarily bad, but how can we involve other people who might be less active but still interested in joining? Let's start with Carlota this time. Do you have any take on this?
Yeah, I think very practically, the fact of designing inclusive process depend of the design itself. We tend to design very traditional one, also because they are designed by the experts, that they have their own point of view. And I think asking the right question when you are designing a process, it make this process more inclusive. We oftentimes say we should do participation where people are. We do not need to keep the participation into the institution, but we need to go where the people we want to reach are already. There is a nice project in Marseille. They are using the methodology of the tableau de quartier. They go to the neighborhood where there are the most the people that are most suffering the consequence of climate change, for example, and they put a table in the public space, and they start running a conversation with them. The agenda and the problem is set by people. So these methodologies, I think, help a lot. Something we were saying before is that, for example, participation requires times, and often people that do not participate is because they miss time, and also they miss the resource to participate. So I think participation need to provide different times to participate, multiple point of access. You should be able to participate in person, but also digitally. And here we can open another discussion about the digital accessibility. And yeah, the time is very important. There is I don't think participation need to systematically be considered as a paid activities, but the fact of participating means you are not doing maybe your job or not taking care of your children. So there are governments that, for example, offer childcare, offer a counterpart in terms of, and I think we need to think about this very practically if we want to achieve, to reach the people we think the participation is designed for.
Exactly. I would still on that question, but I would also you mentioned something interesting, how sometimes these participatory processes are expert-led or led by experts. And I would also like to hear from Bahanur. I know that Wonderland is doing also some work on this aspect. How do you think that this what needs to change to make it the participation more central and not so expert-led, and also maybe sometimes leaving some people behind because of the concepts that we use or the processes that we use, for example, NEB and all these terms that EU terms that sometimes doesn't really appeal to people, or the people don't know what we are talking about.
As Carlotta said, it's including people who are affected and in their lives, entering in their lives where they are, is very important, but also what Pia said about the power, because we have in our societies power asymmetry, and that unfolds that we always have these statistics in our mind. I don't know, we have poor people, we have migrants, we have forced migrants, we have all elderly and so on. But in reality, these people are temporarily dead, or aside of a lot of things also dead. And if you select a person and say, I would like you to participate in my workshop because you are poor, that will of course not work out, because people very often don't feel or count themselves as the poor population. And what we try to do is find out whose voice and opinion is not heard, and try to have an active role at the table. At the table is a imagined table, of course. We try, as Carlotta said, to go to the people and be in their lives, and also see a lot of things without them telling us, because we can't expect that everyone is also an expert on space, on governance, on finances, on architecture, on technical solutions. So the one step for us is to understand the intersectionality of the target group, but also have an active role for that group in the whole elaboration of the solution. We try to have organizations from ground, from the bottom, in our proposals, in our projects, and they have certain interest groups whom they serve, and they can then be included without having too much extra effort. I shared in the chat one project, for instance, in care mobility. We are working with the Frauenforum Ebensee, which is a women's organization. They have services for mothers with little children. They have services for parents with child afternoon care. They have services for elderly. They have services for women in need or who are in danger and so on. So those interest groups are very important for us to work with this. We wouldn't reach them with our project because it's also a temporary situation. For instance, if we work with the woman in danger, hopefully this is not a static situation. It will be often hopefully over for in a period, and having an organization who is already in contact with them is helping us, and also bringing their experience over the years to our table. And even though the single people who are affected change their status because they are not in danger anymore, or they are not migrants anymore because they got citizenship and so on, but this group still remains, and therefore we need also in the governance this stability aspect, that this individual collaboration can accumulate to a collaboration which can continue and which can demand systemic change. So we try to scan the groups which we want to reach and try to find intermediates which can help us with the sustainable change we want. I don't know if that was clear or...
Yes, it was. Thank you. And thank you also for the practical examples, which is always great to hear. Pia, Chiara, what is your take how have we been handling this on UTOPIZE? What do you think that what did you have visited Karlskoga, Ponte Lambro, and Penacova, which are the three initial municipalities where we are testing and launching the Utopia Lab in our project. What do you think has been working and that we should definitely improve in the next months of the project?
I think what I feel is really a strong take of the project is that we do these localized labs, right? What Marilia also said, because when we are thinking of who is missing in these participatory kind of governance processes, it is very often not that the missing voices, they are actually not silent, right? So it is not that they are silent, but basically the process is not designed around their reality. So kind of the access is missing. And I guess that's what we are trying in UTOPIZE, to have this physical lab. So firstly, that it's something kind of tangible. It's not an abstract meeting, which happens once a year in the town hall with a lot of post-its, but actually it's a place which is multifunctional, which can cater towards different challenges the local municipalities have identified. And what I feel also has a strong potential is that some of them are combined, for instance, with a youth center, or they are like in Sweden, together with supported by the local municipality, supported by the library, right? So there is already a network around it of people who obviously care and want to make a change. And I think that has a huge potential to then have impact or to reach groups where quite often a standard process does not feel like the right place to engage with. And I think that is something where I feel on the long run, where the UTOPIZE also tries, of course, that beyond the project scope, that these kind of labs, that they are an integral part of the processes of the municipalities and can cater, also expand on their purpose we have now been setting up, but really kind of allow for challenges to be then solved or taken over by the local municipalities. So I think what we are trying is to not only plant a seed, but there is a lot of we can talk about that later, about technology in a way, like teethers, which help also maybe complexity to be discussed and also translated to different kind of groups in our society, but also which have an impact later on. And I think that I found is really strong and gives me quite a lot of positive hope at this stage that this can actually continue. But Chiara, please chip in. I mean, feel free to add.
Maybe I just want to add something, echoing what Banur said about like moderators or people that can intermediate between like experts and citizen, because what I feel that can be really helpful also in UTOPIZE project is actually the activity, the task in which we are in. So the training for the community leaders, because I feel that trying to fill the gap between the expert and the citizens, training some specific people that already have a recognized role in their community is really something that can help and can also maybe contribute in involving people that are less involved, because maybe they feel more seen, and they feel that they can have people that can have conversation more easily, because they are part already of their community, of their lives, and they know their context. Another word that Carlotta said before that I think it's really important to remember. So also this training, not only for citizens but for the leaders of the community, I think it's something that can be a key for future processes.
Great, thank you. Nefeli, do you see similarities with the SPICE project? How are you? What methods have been most effective in helping the diverse communities? Also, the initial question was very much on also who is still missing. So, and how are you approaching people that might not interact as much. What is your experience from the SPICE project?
I will agree with Chiara that finding like the intermediaries for communication and for bridging the experts with the non-experts, it's very, very important. So we are trying to identify them and activate an ecosystem from which we will target, like we will engage people that are missing. And what we have understood so far and seen is that we miss citizens that have lost faith in political system, and we have a lot, particularly here in Greece. It's in SPICE. There is for all the pilots municipality engaged. So when, for example, citizens hear that the municipality is like involved, they sometimes step back because they don't have like they have lost faith in this political system. So I believe that engaging people that have lost faith in the political system is very, very important. And the exercise that we need to do in order to bring them on board, it's a difficult one and long one. So one thing that we do is to find these intermediaries so they can reach them first, and then we can engage deeper. And we also think that doing activities more cultural oriented or artistic oriented activities would make it easier for people not feeling, this bureaucracy thing that sometimes they hesitate. So we are discussing of what different activities could we do so they can come in without hesitation. This is for now what we have done, and of course we will continue finding solutions to include everyone.
Great. I was just checking the chat. We have some good takes here.
Marina, may I come?
Sure. Go ahead.
React to Nathalie. We are using very often storytelling and filmmaking, and this is very useful and helpful, as Nathalie pointed out, because it's storytelling is as old as humanity probably, and it's very tangible, easy accessible, and we can playfully restructure stories and talk about how do we want to get to the 21st century or something, and especially these topics which are harder for people who feel like they are not experts, like mobility, infrastructure, urban planning, regional planning, or energy. All these topics which are not the common daily talks for people, are very easy accessible with artistic methods, and especially stories, in my opinion, as well.
I'll get back on that because that's also quite interesting and important for both our projects and in general. But I would also like to draw your attention to some of the comments on the chat. We have here Kenneth, which is actually a community leader in Karlskoga. So he is mentioning, also touching on what you mentioned, Nathalie, about the trust. So it's also very much it's not so much how to get people in the room. That's what you mentioned here. But Kenneth, also feel free to jump in if you want to add more details. But it's more to show people that what they they participated matter, because we usually have this tendency of involving people, but then they really don't see the results, the impact. They don't see how their time was actually achieve something. So how can we How can we do that, especially in these European projects that have deliverables, that have very specific terminology, very specific timelines? How can we show people that what they did have an impact? If you have examples from previous projects or previous work, that would be great. And regarding trusts, how can we do can we do something to rebuild trust? And actually, another question: how can we also involve more the local authorities? What I know it's not so always easy, especially in Portugal, maybe in Greece as well, or other countries. How can we involve local authorities more? What can we ask from them? So two questions here regarding the trust and also regarding the impact and how to involve the local authorities and the policymakers in this process. I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Carlotta, you can start if you have.
Yes, I have few ideas in mind. I try to be to proceed step by step. I think the first question you mentioned about how do we show progress. Something I want to bring is that celebration is super important. We see, I think it's European behavior. We don't show much the win we have obtained, but it's very important to create a moment where we celebrate the small achievement we have done with the community you have involved in the participatory process. And this is also related to transparency. It's not only to celebrate. I think the celebration part is very important to make evident that a community has worked together with difficulties, with time, and the results are small, but we are tracking this result and we are celebrating. But it's also a way to be transparent about the process, because, and it disconnects with the trust. Before we were talking about that participation, when is uncovered, is masked under the consultation, leads to mistrust. And I think be transparent of what the process could be achieved or could not have been possible to achieve is super important. So also be transparent about the progress we have met or the gap that still need to be achieved. It's super important. So there are cities that, for example, from the mission perspective, I'm part of the Net Zero City project. So I see a lot of cities that are making progress on their climate actions. They are organizing a collective celebration of the different actors, how the action that they have put in the contract are progressing, etc. I'm stopping here and leave the voice to others, and then I think back to the how to involve the municipality. I think I talked a lot already.
Thank you. I'll get back to you. So maybe I don't know who wants to go next, but Hanur, I'm trying to see if people have the same time. So, but we have time for discussion. But Pahanur, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think celebration is also one of those things which always united us, like in the fall when everything was harvested and so on. It's giving us a time period. But also we try to have kind of like this immediate planning, this midterm and long term with our participation. When we want the trust of the people that they spend time with us, first of all, it has to be something which gives something to them. So we try to have these encounters where not only the encounter benefits us, but also them. So either giving ideas, having a party, having a film screening where we have discussions and inspiring moments and so on, or giving the film equipment to the youngsters and try to see everything through their lenses. So we try always to have a benefit for the participants, for the interest groups, or for the associations which are on ground and working with the interest group or the target groups we are. But in regards of promises. We are taking the studies in tactical urbanism, placemaking very serious. And we never go. We are doing now this workshop activity to learn how shall we change the city. We always go in. We would like to hear how you experience the city and what is difficult for you or problematic and so on, where we can then discuss also about the problem situations. And we firstly talk about things which they really can change on their side by reclaiming the streets, places, painting, having some flowers on the streets to make it more beautiful or whatever. Things which they can really immediately change or reclaim by just having a street fest and so on, which is possible in all our municipalities, so that they actually have the experience. How would everything look like if things were different? Then within the exchanges, we try to find out what could be done if stakeholders could come together. That might be the municipality, that might be the businesses, that might be the schools. What could they as a collective change in 2 years, 3 years time? And then also try to have a formulation of demands, which could be a longer term, which needs the collaboration and the provision of the municipality or region or state and so on. So we try to work on those 3 levels, which are very typical for planning and so on, but it helps us by breaking down those different time periods in our actions to empower actually people to think about short term. And sometimes we don't have any reflections for long term, only midterm. This is also fine because we know everything is also a process, especially when it requires a big change, behavioral change from the targeted group. So yeah, that's how we try to do to give people something, just teach them how to fish in a way and not give just fish.
Sounds great. And that's actually, I think it opens a new, I would like to open the floor also to another aspect of participation that Pia briefly mentioned, and you also mentioned before about storytelling. There are many ways of telling stories. Even though now the projects, I feel like that they are very much focused on data storytelling, involve having more tech processes rather than low tech. But we have noticing that in UTOPIZE, it's some communities, especially young people, are very much against using technology. They want to be as low tech as possible. So I would like to also hear your take. We will get back to Trust, Carlota, but I would also like to hear your take on how can all these digital tools, data, XR models that we will be using, for example, in UTOPIZE, can work without replacing the interests and of people, and what also are the risks of using these tools in a more in processes like this one. I don't know if Pia, you want to start, Pia Chiara?
Yeah, sure. I'm like, yes, so that is very much the core of the UTOPIZE, right? I'm like, within these labs, we have a lot of budget for this XR, different types of tools to, in a way, when the project started with this idea that we felt that there would be a need to translate, let's say, complex data in relation to, let's say, environmental changes or even societal changes, to have a more informed basis for shared participatory processes. So I think that was how the project starts. And then Marilia, you pointed out already that when we have had now these first events with the 3, let's say, municipalities, it was interesting for us to see this different kind of perception from young youngsters, which has probably a different reasoning behind when it comes just how they nowadays feel that their daily life is taken over, let's say, by social media or by other things. But what I feel the potential from, let's say, digital technology at large, if we do it with a forward-looking agenda. So if we move beyond just saying like, yes, of course, we can use AI in prompting how this space might look so super nice and whatever, which I feel is everything is a bit superficial. And it's the same what we have done before in more, let's say, labor time that we just made renders ourselves. But what I feel is an untapped potential of the digital tools is that we firstly also understand that participation does not mean that we remove the conflict. I think also we kind of start a bit wrongly that we feel like, okay, if we do a lot of participation, we are all happy in the end. And I think this is not the way, you know, like how we should even frame that with the different kind of stakeholders. But I guess where we can use the tools is that we can show actually that these trade-offs, different views, that they can become negotiable, right? So, and I think that would be a really success story if we find good participation processes that help people to see that it's not only about what they prefer, but also to flip the perspective. So what is their preference? What does it mean to someone else? So if I want that, what does it mean to my neighbor who has maybe a different perception? And then these tools, they can really help in finding not a weak consensus, but actually finding something where we feel, okay, we are community, we are here together. So if we want to have this really uplifting, we need to agree that certain things might be less priority. And then how do we move ahead? And that for me also goes along with it's also an education for the municipalities because it is something else than top down versus bottom up. It is actually using the tools to show the points, not only which hurt, but show the points where we have the greatest potential to make changes or to start to make the change. And that I feel is something we are trying to look in UTOPIZE now when we are discussing about, okay, if we have all this tech, what's a meaningful approach beyond just a simple render? And that also can give us a bit more digital training in becoming again responsible and the author for the outcomes. I guess that's something we are trying to achieve, or which would be at least like a high goal of the project.
Definitely. Nefeli, what is your take on what are you doing on in the SPICE project?
Yeah, we have the same. So we started when the proposal was written with some tech ideas for technologies and tools that will help, and we also realized that they will not work in all the cases. So for example, we wanted to offer to the citizens and to non-experts the ability to prompt and see, for example, what the place would look like. But then we realized that this is not the case because, okay, for somebody that is not into this, there is this wow effect. So maybe they will see something, oh, nice, because the render was nice, right? So it cuts them from going like deeper, as Pia said. So we definitely we are trying to find other uses for such a technology. So we are going to use them for like extreme scenario, for the people to see how, if we make this place like this and rain, and then gonna have like a storm or whatever, what are the risks and what are you gonna do? So it's more towards creating extreme scenarios and testing and putting citizens in such conditions, more than rendering the final, not the final, rendering their ideas. Of course, they are going to be free to do it, but this is not going to be the purpose probably at the end. Of course, we will use the technology for rendering the final decision, the final master plan, because in SPICE we will deliver like one master plan for each the pilot site, and technology will help us visualize this master plan, right? So of course we will use it there. And in general, we have all kind of technology. So we will have the low tech. We will have like very small activities with mobile. We will have like the more the screen-based technologies and the XR. So it depends on the pilot needs where we're gonna use each one of them. And what we believe that it's very, very useful, the technology is to keeping track of everything that is happening. So we are, even the activity is going to be analog or digital, we keep track of every phase, of every step, so the citizens and the stakeholders could go back and see step by step what is happening in a platform. So for transparency, I believe the platform that we are creating is going to be very useful. And for accountability, because through this platform, every proposal, every conflict, whatever could, from the governments, could be like explained, justified. So we're trying to then upload justified responses for what's happening. So tech help us here, to structure and keep track of everything and have it in one place where everyone could go, log in, and see, what is happening. So this is what we're working on SPICE.
I think we all from UTOPIZE are very excited to learn more about that. We have still a few minutes for the plenary discussion. I would like to open the floor to the participants. I know that there has been some discussion on the chat, but is there someone who wants to ask a specific question or add their take on this, on what you have been discussing? Feel free to raise your hand or ask in the chat. While we think about it, maybe we can go back to Carlotta. You wanted to add something else on the trust, or maybe also you want to add a bit on this aspect of also digital tools and the risks.
Maybe on the digital tools, I think I think they need to be used as they are, as something that supports what we are doing, as Nefeli was saying, to systematize knowledge, to make knowledge more accessible and accessible in different moments, but they never have to substitute not real, because they are real digital tools, but they do not to substitute something we can do. I really like what Pia was saying about the empathy, that for me is connected with this importance of maintaining a physical space. The cities and initiatives that are using tool to substitute a physical encounter and physical space, then they will fail in the long term, because as you were saying, youngsters today, they want to disconnect. There is a digital fatigue, and I think we need to going back to physical encounters that create ownership much more than digital tools that are places where you throw your opinions, but there is not this confrontation, this real confrontation. So I see more and more the use of tools in a European project, but I also see that they fail if they want to substitute a real connection and physical engagement.
Great. I'm just checking if there are any questions. I don't think so. I don't know. We still have many questions or many aspects that we we can definitely touch upon, but I'm also mindful of time. So I would maybe also would like to do a final round regarding everything that we mentioned here about the lack of trust, how the digital fatigue, how the challenges, the different challenges that we have in the different places that we are working with, the importance of talking, to have community leaders to bridge the gap between experts and non-experts. But how does that, what do you think that could definitely be in practice and looking ahead? What do you think that a city or an ideal, our project is UTOPIZE, right? So an utopia. How can that definitely work? How can a city that truly works for everyone would feel like or look like, and how would it be? And that's also very much connected to the poll that we have opened. So feel free to answer to the poll if you haven't. And yes, I would like to hear from you. So what would a city that worked for everyone look like? Maybe we can start with, sorry, with Pia, that I know you have to leave shortly.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a wonderful and as well like a super challenging question at the same time, right? I guess when I'm looking into the ambition we are having in the UTOPIZE project, and also from many of us being architects and being generally interested in shaping cities, I feel for me it would be wonderful if we can come, if projects we are doing like what we are discussing in here would firstly have a long-term effect. I think that also means that when EU is funding these great projects, quite often we talk about platforms, enablers, like this kind of very first projects. And then quite often they don't have the breadth to actually support municipalities for making a real change. So I guess for me, this question really ties up on also the support, let's say, from bodies like EU to have this follow-up, taking care of these projects, because it would be really, I guess, the goal in a time where we have this strong polarization, where we are facing extreme environmental conflicts. So basically, an ideal city for everyone will not feel frictionless or conflict free, right? But what is really important is it needs to feel legible, welcoming, and negotiable. And there, I think different kind of tools and setups can actually help us to make us understand how the decisions are made, and also how we can kind of cultivate a new form of communication. And that's where I see, coming back to the labs we are kind of trying to establish in UTOPIZE, could be super nice, because they could be like an open, very kind of low threshold, democratic, almost like an opening door where we can showcase how the decisions are, what is kind of being made currently in the municipalities, what is missing, how I can leave, let's say, a node which is taken care, so that you basically become really accountable from both directions, and that you have meeting points which just supports communication. Because I think that's the most challenging part we have currently in cities, that we are going into polarization, and that we are not having like a platform where I'm invited to just basically talk about my wishes, but also the potentials. And I think that would be wonderful if we can get there, so that it really comes from an inclusive governance. And then whatever tools help us, I think that's not so important, but that we actually make really meaningful approaches which have a long-term impact, and that we care for that. I think that would be the ideal outcome for me in all of the projects we are doing.
I see, Carlotta, you have your hand up. Sorry.
Yes, I raised my hand because My vision for a city that works for everyone, I think, is a continuation of what Pia was saying while she was telling her vision about this idea of having places where people do democrat. For me, it's a question of being trained to be a democratic citizen. If we want to take transport, we have an infrastructure that supports mobility in the cities, and we currently do not have infrastructure that support democratic life. And I think democratic life pass through a series of, in what we call a democratic society, we call the democratic infrastructures that are places, but also tools and less physical support to foster this democratic life. And as Pia was saying, I think the important is to continue to see democracy as a continuously negotiable practice. So I have a background in architecture and urban design, and I really think we miss places where those negotiations are facilitated and are happening. And I really believe that places like the idea of laboratories, in the ancient polis there were the agora, where these conversations happen and are supported by our governments because they provide the space, because a very contested topic in cities where the space are for people to meet, because there is a sort of commodification of cities. So I really think about an infrastructure, physical, digital, and that sustain democratic life. It's a bit visionary, but I think the image it could be strong.
Well, it's I started with the question talking about utopia, so I think it's a good take. Bahanur, do you want to go next?
Yes. I think the important part is we are individuals working or small groups working on solutions, but the money comes from municipality, EU, or whatever. Actually, it's the contractor is the population. The money comes as tax or other means. So having this should help us to understand that we need to work for the people, and that changes the perspective in a way. We are single people who develop our master plan, solutions, and so on. But we need an army. We need everyone to live that. Otherwise, there is no change only because we build a bus stop. There is no change because we build a agora. We need people to come there, negotiate, and all the things. In a way, that was also there was a agora where people negotiated things, but the topics we have, taking care of climate and so on, was not so much the wider population. Need a lot of facilitation next to the places that everyone feels also kind of path, not only to the place but to the topic, to know that their actions matter, but also to can do in single day incidents, and doing it differently than the marketing does. All the guilt of the climate change to the consumers and not providing anything else, and greenwashing, but really because as municipality, as a research institution, as an NGO, what we are, we should do better greenwash their products and really understand we are contribution in our funded projects, in our professions, because of the people. There wouldn't be a city if there wouldn't be millions of. So I think having that clearer as a framework can help us to understand what single incidences in single situations by scanning what is already there and how can we facilitate that really a mass of can take action and do different than so far.
Thank you, Bahanud. We are just missing Nefeli. What's your take on what's your ideal, I wouldn't call it ideal city, but what would be a city that would work for everyone?
A city with less people. Sorry for saying that. But we need like cities needs not to be like we need to the power needs to be distributed more than in one city. In Greece we suffer with this, like everything happens in Athens, all in Athens, like people cannot live anymore in Athens, but they cannot escape from there. So I would say that like in a bigger like governance model, not local or regional, we need to find ways to take people out of there, to be honest, so they can live better. Yes. But other than that, I would say that we need to educate citizens on how things work in a governance level, because I think also this is important. And educate like politicians, not educate, like making them, how to say, better experience and feel the problems that the real problems that people have. So we need somehow to, make a balance between those two. So this could, of course, made possible through physical spaces, but as Pahanur said, it's not so easy. I'm afraid. We have like places that supposed to take this role, but at the end, they cannot be more open than the institutional structures are. Yeah, so I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. It's not. Yeah, I don't know. I would say like we can start from making the cities not so dense. Somehow.
Less centralized, so
Yes.
not everything should happen in Athens. I think in the past we had that issue in Portugal, but we are slowly changing, which is good. Not everything happens in the capital. So I'm mindful of time. We are 2 minutes ahead of our time, not that much. But is there anything that participants want to add, that you want to add as a final, very, very short statement? That is, we have maybe 2 more minutes to wrap up. Anything else that Bruno, sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Hi. So, relating to what Nefeli was saying, I think UTOPIZE is dealing with this kind of different demonstrators in different scales of localities, from Milano till Penacova, which is near Coimbra. And so the challenges are very different. And so what we normally are discussing is how the level of utopia is probably also dependent on the scale of these localities. Not only the challenges that we face, because the challenges are quite different. Of course, climate change is dramatic over here with storms, and all of us are waiting for the fires now. And so in Greece, we know that it's similar. And so what we are dealing is in fact what could be the level of utopia on different scales. I think we have to see how different scales, not seeing the city as an abstract concept. I think it's always an error to see or taking from this starting point, even if we have to share of to take care of the concept, or else we will make a tabula rasa of what the city per se has taught us. So what I would like to add is this idea of different localities. And I think the difficulty is probably in the medium scale localities where I know Athens and big cities are quite are a problem, but they have all the means to deal with them. But I think normally there are small scale localities where there are what we have in Portugal is, for example, a good tradition of improvement commissions in these small localities where people try to do their best for the church, for example, for the public space. They don't have the means, but they do all the best to join and to give their opinion to where the governance is. But then the medium scale are difficult places because they start to have more diversity. So there's no model for this kind of transition of scale between the big city, where the model is quite more than static, perhaps, and this low scale, which I think we have to cherish also, and I think we have to learn from it.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Really, to wrap up, I would ask our speakers to describe in one word. I know this is hard, but taking about the topic, cities that work for everyone, participatory approaches as well. One word to wrap up all our discussion. Bahanur, do you want to start?
Sure. As the most important part is to empower those who are good intended and try to have an impact, change, create resources for them, no matter if it's financial or really help them this methodology, organizing stuff and giving them space to speak out. But really be selective on collaborations and who we support in their actions, who is really not who is powerful, but who is really important in our work.
Great, thank you. Nefeli, one word or?
I would say 2 words: education and culture. I think we need to educate, to be more educated, and to give more focus on culture.
Great. Carlotta?
I know the word that I don't like, that is solutions. And in opposition to that, maybe way through. I like way through. I don't know. For me, it's very pathways, whatever.
Good. And Pia had to leave, so Chiara, I leave it to you to finish with a word.
Yeah, I would choose maybe care. That means, towards both spaces and people, and remembering that we are like together all in this, and we have to make things works. And so taking care of each other and of our spaces and stories, and I think it's the only way, maybe. But maybe don't want to finish like this, like a dreamer, but
That's fine. We need dreamers and pessimists. Well, thank you very much. This was a great discussion. We will stop the plenary session and the live streaming now, which I will do it right now, so I won't